Let's do it. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Samach Ches. We left off the bottom of Samach Zayin with base. We got the two bottom, the two dots at the bottom yesterday. 3 lines from the bottom, and away we go. Rabbi Abba. So we were discussing cases of tzedakah. So Rabbi Abba, Havitzayer Zuzei Besudre V'Shadi Le'Achure. So Rabbi Abba used to go ahead and tie up money in a sudar and a kerchief, right, and throw it behind himself, behind him, some sort of bag or something, contraption. He used to go ahead and put it behind him so the poor people can go ahead and take it without them seeing, without them being embarrassed. But he would sort of, look back over his shoulder to make sure it wasn't any ramai, so any people pretending to be poor who are not actually poor, who are basically quote unquote stealing the money for charity. Rabbi Chanina, so Rabbi Chanina, he had a certain person used to go ahead and give 4 zuz every year of Shabbos. One week or one day, one of the weeks, he gave it to his wife, Asya. So he gave it to his wife to go ahead and give the guy 4 zuz. Asya, he doesn't need the money. What are you giving him for? So my chazis. So he asked her, "What'd you see?" So Shami Dahavi. So she's told him, "Shami Dahavi called him." He was telling, I guess, the people who are with him, "B'mata soy," right? They said to him, "Hey, what are you eating?" Is it, we're top of Samach Ches and Aleph, we just turned the page, right? Is it B'tlei Kesef? Oh, B'tlei Zohav, right? I using today the silver or the gold tablecloths. So he's a wealthy guy. So Amar, he said, Hainu Damir Rabbi Elazar, Bo V'nachzik Tuivel Ramay. We should actually go ahead and give thanks to those people who are deceitful. If it wasn't for them, every day would be sinners. As the pasuk says, it says over there that people should be careful that people turn to you for charity, and if you don't, right, if you don't give, who's needing, then they'll turn to Hashem, and Hashem will call them sinners. So if you don't give a poor person, right, then you're called a sinner. But because we don't know who the real poor people are, and some people are deceitful, so therefore, right, it doesn't necessarily make us sinners because not giving poor, because this person might not be poor. Right, whoever turns his eyes from tzedakah, from charity, is like he worships idols. It says over here, right, so the pasuk over there, that was the pasuk he had brought before from Devarim. It says over there, right, the pasuk says because of Chayta in the beginning, it says the lashon of Belia, right? So it says over there, Belia.
What is Belia?
So I guess you should be careful, right? If you're not responsible, right, for that which is in your heart. It says there by idol worship. So just like it's tantamount to idol worship. So it's over here, not giving charity to the poor is ki'ilu, one is avig chavim. Fine. Hamasami saying of Matzav as beaten of as shoko. A person who goes ahead and basically pretends to be blind his eye, or has stomach pains, his swollen stomach from hunger, or his leg fakes a leg injury. All these cases he's trying to fake to go ahead and get charity. Right? You're going to fake it until you make it. He's not going to leave the world until it becomes more like this. And one who goes ahead and takes charity and he does not need the charity. Also, in the end, ultimately, he'll become poor, and then he'll need charity. And Taran Hassam, Ein Mechayvin Oisel Limkor Es Beiso, that's Kli Tashmisha. So one is not obligated to go ahead and, I guess, sell his items in order to receive charity to be considered to be a poor person. So you have to have $200 cash. So let's say he has assets but doesn't have cash. So one is not required to go ahead and sell his items, his house, or his utensils in order to have the cash to have 200. He said, even though he has assets, nevertheless, he doesn't have cash to buy food, and therefore he's considered to be poor. Low, and he doesn't have to go ahead and sell it and liquidate. If he had golden utensils, but he has no cash, so sell those and use silver. Or he has silver, go ahead and use copper. So Amarav Zvid like kasha. When it comes to a bed and a table, okay, so those you can sell. Those aren't as personal as opposed to cups and dishes and silver already eats. So therefore, he can't really change those because it's gross. So Maishna kaisis bekaros to low. Damra meisili. Like a person will say, "Oh, it's gross." I was used to these cups and all that. He made me downgrade. I can't use those cups. Those the material. It's gross. So also a bed and a table. So Amarava bered the rabba, but machrisha the kaspa. That which the utensil we're talking about. We're not talking about beds. Those beds also a person can't downgrade. We're talking about, let's say it's a silver plow. Go ahead and change it out for a cheaper plow. Trade it in, get some cash, and therefore now you're liquid. You don't need to take from the charity. One is if he went ahead and he took and he didn't have the cash at the time, he took the money, right? And he wasn't supposed to take the money. So then we make him liquidate. But before then we do not make him go ahead and liquidate if he's, in order to take charity. Fine. Now in Mishnah.
You have to sell your shirt.
By the four Aracosos, right, yeah, right. So over there, right. So I feel on the tamchui, right. So it says over there, a person who is right who's so poor, but that's I guess for the mitzvah of the gula of the Tzis Mitzrayim, right, requires one even if he's in charity to go ahead and sell that. Over here they didn't because this is what qualifies. And there's different halachas when it comes to an ani by to take from the fields to take payah or meiser ani and stuff like that qualifies. So the question is, how do you qualify? I guess you have to be good enough accountants to to make sure you don't show any assets. Fine. Now in Mishnah. Mishnah says, Yisayma Shesiyasa Ima Achel Nidaita. So you have an orphan whose mother or brother married her off. Nidaita, right? Which doesn't really necessarily, as Rashi points out, Rebusa Kamashwan, right? This extra really don't need her willingness, right? She's a Ktana. And they write for 100 or 50 zuz. So when she gets older, she can go ahead and demand that she gives that she's been given a proper dowry, not the ksuba, but the dowry that's given over to her. Right, the assets that she brings in, right, that her children will be able to benefit from in the future. She can go back to the estate and says, "Okay, you guys shorted me, all right?" Because this was done while she was a katana. While she's a katana, she doesn't have the ability to agree, disagree, whatever it is. So therefore, she goes along with it. But when she gets older, she can go ahead and say, "Okay, now it's time to." Her ksuba is right, but this time on the dowry that comes into it, right? The dowry. Right, but Meir Chamishim Zuz, dunya. And Rabbi Huda Omer, right, the dowry is that which she brings into the family. That if she has children, right, then her girls and the boys will inherit that, and then the girls, right, will be able to benefit from that. So that's basically for her estate. Now, Rabbi Huda Omer, Ini says V'habas Harishayna Yinasin L'Shmiya Kedech Shnasan Harishayna. Says Rabbi Huda, no, look, if it's the second daughter, right, or the third, or whatever it is, and the father was around the first time, right, and he died. Subsequently, she got married, right, as a ketana. So then you give her what the derech was that the first one got. And the chachamim say, no, you can't go ahead and necessarily look back. Perhaps the first time he was wealthy, he was poor, then became wealthy, or he was wealthy, then became poor. Rather, we assess the nechasa, we assess the assets, and we give from there. Right? We'll soon see we give a tenth. We give what the father had with the estate, and give a tenth as over as her nedunya. Amar Shmuel. So what do you say? 8 daughters. All right, we'll see. All right, well, let's see. Yeah, the Gemara's going to ask. Yeah, the Gemara's going to ask. Okay, what about someone with 10 daughters, right? Yeah. So Amar Shmuel says Shmuel leparnasa shamin ba'av. When it comes to the parnasa, now the parnasa is referred to over here as the nedunya, right? As the dowry. So when it comes to her parnasa, says Shmuel, we assess the father. In other words, we do an umdra. What would the father have wanted to give his daughter? That's what Shmuel says. So first of all, it says habanos nizanis parnasa is min nechse. So it says the daughters nizonos means their daily mizonos, right, from their father, and the parnasa meaning the dowry they would take into their marriage, min nechse, right? So they take it from the nechasim of the father who passed away. So Ketzad. So they don't say, had your father been around, he would have given so and so. Rather, they assess her the assets and they give her for the over there. So Shmuel said, Shmuel says, he says, oh, what would the father want to do? And over here, this is saying, no. It doesn't cares about the father. It just matters what the assets were. So my love parnasas habal, and when it says over there, it says nizonas parnasas. Is that referring to the parnasas habal? In other words, her dowry that she's going to bring to her husband. Some of them not the parnasas atzvanos referring to mizonas. So what are we talking about? How nizonas and parnasas? It says two things: nizonas, her mizonas, and her parnasa. So my love achas parnasas habal, the achas parnasa atzva was referring to parnasas habal, which is the parnasa, and parnasa atzma is the nizonas. So our answer is no. No, both referring to her, her support, right? Nothing to do with her dowry. And the two things are one are eating and drinking. The other one is her, her clothing. Both those are something that we take from the estate and we don't go through the assessments.
You deduct from the dunya, the parnasa for the woman, not.
No, that's separate. That's separate. So a girl, an orphan girl, she eats from the estate, and in addition to that, she's also allotted
to the
a dowry for her to go ahead and get married and get a husband.
If the Baal take part of the parnasa, they deduct it from the dunya, no? Because
so once they get married, then yeah. So once she gets married. We're still talking about when she's bebeis aviha, when she's only engaged and she's still eating from the brothers. Once she leaves and there's brothers and all that, she's off the estate. So Tanat. So let's look at Ashir. Sometimes a person was poor, then he became rich. Oh, Ashir, or he was rich and then he became poor. We give her as it is. So my ani my Ashir. What does it mean? He was poor and then he was rich. If it means literally, as I explained until now, in other words, he was poor, it means he has, he doesn't have money, and he's rich, he has money. Mechlal, the Tanakama Saber, Afilu Asher Bani. It sounds like he's arguing the Tanakama. The Tanakama would hold if he was rich the first time his daughter got married, the Ani and he became poor. Can they carry Avinala? But he have to give her the same, right? He had $1 million at the time. He gave her $100,000. Now the guy has $2,600 to his name. So you have Vinala, he has to give her $100,000. He doesn't have. Elalav, rather, what does it mean? Ani bedas. Rather, he means he was poor-minded, meaning he was cheap, right? And Ashir bedas, he was generous, right? Viktani, and there says if he was generous or rich, Viktani, Shamis and Achasim and Isin love. Right, we look at the assets. We don't look at how he was, his disposition. Rather, we look at his assets. We see you don't go ahead as to what the father would have done. So how could Shmuel go ahead and say what the father? We assess what the father would have done. Over here, the clearly seem to say you go after the assets. So I to the Shmuel. That's Gash and Shmuel. So the answer no. Who do Rabbi Yehuda? He holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Tanan Rabbi Yehuda. I marry im hesi as bas harishain. If you marry off the first, now you not in the shnia kederech shenas in the rishain, right? Rather, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Now, since we look at the way he gave his daughter, was he generous? Was he not generous? That's how we give it. So even if the assets are less, so according to those assets, we'll give generously according to those assets, right? Or vice versa. If he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, then just say the halachas like Rabbi Yehuda, because remember, it's a three machlokes and mishnahs: the Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda, then the Chama. Say, right. So why isn't Shmuel? So Shmuel should have just said halach Rabbi Yehuda. Right. Why did Shmuel say the parnasa when it comes to her dowry? We assess the father's mentality, his disposition. See, halach Rabbi Yehuda have dafka. If it would have said halacha Rabbi Yehuda, I would have thought dafni sia. Only if he already married off a daughter, then we know exactly how he acted. The gali daite of aloisia. But if he never went ahead and married off a daughter, then maybe then we wouldn't go after this disposition, whether he's a generous guy or is a cheap, miserly guy, and we just go according to the assets. So therefore, look, Kamash Malon, that even in that case, the Talmud Yehuda does need a bas umdra. And therefore, we see according to Yehuda, you go after the umdra, loishna, isia. It doesn't make a difference whether he already previously married off daughters, or loishna, loisia, or if he didn't. And that which says in the case of where he married Fadolo did the Rabbanan to tell you the strength of Rabbanan. The Alpha got this seal the Galidaite that even though he already married a daughter, we can see how he treated the first daughter. Lo Baslina Basumdra, we don't go Basumdra, rather we go Basar the Nechasim. So Amarle Rav Rav Chisda.
Who makes the decision to go by the Nechasim? But who's making the decision how much to give him the dowry?
So it's 1/10. Well, Susan, it's 1/10, as the Gemara was going to say soon. All right, good question.
How they came with that?
Why 1/10?
Yeah, why 1/10?
Whereas the Gemara does not bring a pasuk. I think it was Noach. I mean, I think the next Mishnah we had Mishnah Hakol fi the Minhag. I think actually the previous Mishnah we said.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
Well, so we'll see. So the Gemara's in the question. What about I got 10 daughters? Right? He went right. Yeah. So Amalei Rav Rav Chisda. So Darshina Shmecha Halak Rabbi Yehuda. So says Rav Chisda. Can we go ahead and darsh in your name? Halak Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei Rav Kol Kihani Mili Mal Yosef Tishina Mishamai. Right? Yes, that's a great thing. Right? It'll be great if any good halachas or drashas you could say my name. Yeah, sure. Please go ahead. Umi Amar Rava Hachi, and the Rava said halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda that we go after the disposition of the father. But Tanu the Brisa, Rabbi Yomer Basanis and Menachin, a daughter who is being supported from her brothers, and as the father died and she's eating the sons of her brothers. Now tell us Ishur Nechasim. She goes ahead and takes 1/10 of the assets for her dowry. The Marava Hilchas like Rabbi, the halacha is like Rabbi. So takes over here seems to be a flat fee. Take 1/10. You don't go according to the assessment. So like Kashya, one is a case where we had the opportunity to assess the father. If we can assess how the father was, then you take according to that. If we can't assess what the father did, then you just take 1/10. And how can I be mistaken? So logical to say, one time there was a mice and Rebbe gave 1/12 of the assets. So Rebbe just said he gave 1/10. And why did the mice Shahaya he gave 1/12? So one was the case of where he previously married off the daughters and he only gave 1/12. And but over here, but he never gave a dowry to a daughter, therefore we give 1/10. Indeed, we learn from there. 3 lines from the bottom. Gufa Omar Rebbe Bas Hanizoinus Mina Achin. So we just mentioned a girl, an orphan who is being sustained, getting sustenance from Mazonas from her brothers. Now tell us Isha Nechasim. She takes 1/10 of Nechasim. So Amar Lo Rebbe Devaracha. According to what you're saying, guy got 10 daughters. Uben Einlo, right? Right, the sons have nothing to go and inherit. He has $1 million, he has 10 daughters, and he marries them off. So each one take 1/10, and the sons left with nothing to inherit. So that no, this is what I meant to say. The first one takes 1/10, right? So if there's $100 or $1 million, takes 100,000. In other words, the next one takes 1/10 of the 900,000 of what's left. And then they go back and they know if 10 daughters got married, so each one gets 10th gets smaller, and then they divide evenly.
Right, what do you mean?
What?
The dowries, they all have equal dowries. They line up all the dowries together. First one was 100,000, next one was 90,000, next one was 8.1 thousand or 81,000, so on and so forth. Added up, divided by 10, everyone ends up with 42,000, right? So the Chalokas B'Shavit. So the Gemara asks, I was going to ask, and so we say over there, right? The Chazeres v'Chalakas B'Shavit Kol Chad v'Chad D'Nash Shakla. So wait, one second. So the Gemara says, so he says. But Kochad v'Chada, the Nasha Shakov, each one already took it. She already took her money. I don't understand what you're saying. So Achi Kamar, If they're all coming to get married at the same time, right? Right, then they go ahead and divide even. And even though, in other words, they don't take a tenth. Rather, basically, what we do is there's a tenth, and then a tenth of after that tenth, and a tenth after that, and then we redivide it, and then we give it out.
How much will be left potentially?
So actually, I just saw in the footnotes. I saw in the footnotes. It goes down, right? Oh, it doesn't say. It says the total of 10 is 6.5%. Right.
35%.
Right. It starts with 10, then 9, then 8.1, 7, 3, 6, 6, and so on and so forth until 6.5. Yeah. So footnote number 42.
So that's what it is.
Got the assets all like that.
So yeah. So and then the Gemara says, so Hakamar imbo kulam dinasei kachas chol b'Shabbat. And inside the Rav Masna, number of Masna imbo dinasei kulam kachas neitlos isur echad. So he takes a tenth. Ellen neitlos isur kachad. Rather, they all take a tenth like one. In other words, each they take a tenth after a tenth after a tenth, and they divide it equally amongst the sisters. Fine. Taner Rabban. Habanais bein bagru ad nisu. All right, so here's the next suga. So daughters, so whether they become a bogeras, right, and they never got married in the suin, or bein yiso ad bagru, or they got married before they became 12 and a half, ivdu mizunaseyam v'la'ivdu parnasasa. They lose out on their daily sustenance. Once you're a bogeras or you're married, you're out of the house, you're not eating from the brother's estate anymore, right? Go get a job, you're 12 and a half, right? You're going to have to work at the, Baskin Robbins, right? Out of here. But however, they don't lose their dowry. In other words, if they get married later on, then they get the dowry.
So the brothers have to keep that in escrow?
Yes, so that amount from the estate, right, they would still get that. Divrei Rebbe, that's the opinion of Rebbe, right? So we have to remember this is Rebbe, right? So this we're more or less concentrating on the sheet of Rebbe. No, they even once they become old enough or they get married, they lose out on the dowry. So they didn't collect the dowry at the time when they got married, then that's it. You lost your chance. So Kate said, hey, says, so what do? Right? They go ahead and they basically, since they get married, right? They marry their husbands, and then they have them go ahead and collect their dowry for them.
Higher husbands.
Right. Right. So they the higher husband parnasasa. Right.
Husband for hire.
Right. And as Rashi says,
It's like the green card.
right. Sheiso actually right. They married them before they become a Bulgarians, but they have the suin or motzila parnasa, and then they can go ahead and might see their parnas. Because they're already old enough to go ahead and do it. We'll see if it comes by a God. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Li, Huna, Hilchas like Rabbi, Hilchas like Rabbi. So Hilchas like Rabbi that says they have not lost their dowry. They have not lost their parnasas. Their parnas. Say Svei Rav Nachman, I Rav Nachman Gashni Samashis, Ima, if he is Sama, or if her mother married her, or Chimidaita, this is our Mishnah, their mother or her brother married her off. The custom of Chamishim Zuz, they say, okay, 150 Zuz, Yicholahi, Mishatag, Yelaitzim Yadam. When she gets older, she can go ahead and remove it from them. So Masha Ilana saying, look, whatever is fit to go to her. So the reason of there is a time of the Ketana. The reason is because she's a Ketana, Hagadela. But let's say she was already 12, right? She wasn't a Ketana anymore. She was 12, right? So he's saying this Hagadela Vitra. But it sounds like if she's already a Nara, she's lost an opportunity. Our Mishnah seems to say only a Daf Ketana, but a Nara loses out. So like Kasha Had Mechai. What does she protest? If she makes a protest while she's a Nara, then she later on she can go ahead and collect it. But if she's not, she doesn't make a protest, then she doesn't get it. How can I have this time logical to say it? Didn't Kasha the Rebbe of the Rebbe? Because if that's not the case, you have a contradiction of Rebbe. The Tana good in the Bryce Rebbe Yomer, Basin is and if you have a daughter who's going out and being sustained from her brothers, Natos Isher Nechasin, she goes out Isher Nechasin, she goes out and takes a tenth of the Nechasin. So Nizanas eat. It sounds like only if she's being fed by them. But once she's no longer being fed by the brother, she's a Nara. Then she would not be able to go ahead, right, and take a tenth. What is the case where she gets it as a Nara? Is the case she doesn't? The Mechai, shmamina. So if she makes a protest while she's an Nara, I want my dowry, then she'll be able to go ahead and collect the dowry. But once she's 12 and she says, okay, I don't need a dowry, then she's given up that.
She is a financial planner.
At the age of 12, as a Gedolah.
Roughly, you have to do in order not to lose money when you get older.
Yes, as a Gedolah. Not as a katana, she's not responsible. That was our mission to cover. Over here, we're saying once she becomes a Gedolah, which is the Nara already, right? And even though she's not Nisu or Achlo Bagru, she hasn't become a Bulgaris yet, nevertheless, she has the ability to be mochab, protest, and say, I'm going to still want what's due to me. Do it on her behalf. Yeah. So Amarlei Rabbeinu Rabba. So Amarlan says Rabbeinu Rabba. So Rabbeinu Rabba. Amarlan Rav Admar Rav Mishmecha. So they said this is what they told Rabba. This is what they said in your name, Rabba. Bagra ain't limchais. Once she becomes a Bagar, she doesn't need to go and make to protest. Niseis ain't limchais. Or if she becomes married, she doesn't have to go ahead and protest. So Bagra and Niseis, but if she's both old and married, then tzrich limchais. So Agadi says Mir Rav Rachi. Right? Did Rabba say this? Vaha Esve Rav Nachman Yisema, right? A case of Yishama. So the answer there, we just like we said before, the case of the Yisema, we said when she becomes old enough, if she doesn't make a mocha, then she's done. So how could you say over here, right? The Shani line, we answer there, Hadamachi Hadamachi. In other words, over there is a protest. When there's a protest, then you get the money, but not. So, but nevertheless, we see over here, even in a case of right. When she's even a Nara, right? So he said that she over here, it seems to say, how could Rabbi earlier say that she doesn't have to make a protest, right? Basani says, right? Now, excuse me, this guy, how could you say she doesn't have to make a macha? We saw clearly, we answered before that the way she gets her full dowry is by protesting. And here you seem to say she doesn't have to make a macha. So look, Asha. So I answer no. If she's getting sustained for them as a nara, where she doesn't have to, they kick her out of the house. But if she's getting for them as a nara and she wants her dowry, so then she's not going to protest because they're being nice to me. So therefore, in such a case, she doesn't need to make a protest because she wouldn't be chutzpahdik to them, right? But later on, she can claim it. But if she's not getting anything from the brothers and she still doesn't protest, now she's given up her rights. But if she's getting something from them,
she's mevugeres. Only is a bulgar.
As a nara,
no, Nara, if she didn't protest.
No, but even as a nara, if she doesn't protest, it could still be okay,
right?
If she's basically being fed by the brothers, so she would not make a protest in their face because they're being nicer. So there's a reason why she didn't protest, but really she, didn't go along with that. And Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe Parnasa in a Tanai Ksuba. And the one final statement, so he says, Parnasa, right? The dowry is not like the Tanai Ksuba. So my in Ksuba. No, the Tanai Ksuba, in other words, the guy dies and his daughters are able to go ahead and take money from the assets, right? So he named the Ilu Parnasa, Trafi Mishadi, Tanai Ksuba, Mishavdi. If you say that for a Parnasa, no, it's for her dowry for the girls to go ahead and get married. All right, let's say they sold part of the estate. So the girl now time to get married. Says, okay, that estate, you shouldn't have sold it in the first place. That land goes as her dowry. Give the buyers need to go ahead and get back their money. And by the Tanakh Suba, when it comes to her support, she needs money for her daily meals. And so they can't go ahead and collect from something that was sold. So this my kamashmalon was the chiddush there. This happens all the time. Right? We do go ahead and this land was sold. It shouldn't have been sold because it was supposed to be for a dowry. We take it back. But you don't take it back if we need it for her daily sustenance. So what is the chiddush we're saying that the parnasa is not like Tanai Ksuba? The elo diu parnasa gavi metaltlin, the Tanai Ksuba mekarki gavi metaltlin lo gavia. Or you could tell me like this: the dowry can go ahead and be collected for even movable objects, but her daily support is not cannot be used for movable objects. So lo gavia. So the Rebbe either gavia. No, that's not true because both of them are used. Can be taken from movable objects. The time and Raisa. Echan nechasim sheish demachrayis. Whether it's something that has a chrayis such as land, the echan nechasim sheina machrayis, or something which is movable. Maitzin lamazon aisha. You can go ahead and use as support for this daily sustenance of a woman, and for the daughters for their and then also for their dowries. So Ella. What does it mean? Parnas ain't a ketanai ksuba. What does it mean? Parnas is not like the dowry is not like ketanai ksuba. The ketanai learn a brisa. Ha'aymer al yizanu b'naisav minachasa. A person says, do not go ahead and support my daughters for my nechasim after I die. Ein shaymin lo. We do not listen to them. We must go ahead and support the daughters from the estate. Al is parnas b'naisav minachasa. Do not go ahead and give a dowry to my daughters from my estate. Then shaymin lo. Then we do listen to him. Why? Because the parnas, the dowry for the future for his daughters, is not like the conditions that are written in the stipulated ksuba that he must go ahead and support his daughters, but he doesn't necessarily have to give a dowry. All right, we'll stop here.
Nice.
Okay, great.